So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so I've got Mark Cuban, who is, he's a really big cryptocurrency enthusiast, but he was recently, I'm not sure why my little thing popped up here.
Oh, I know. Sometimes they have a mind of their own.
He was on the Altcoin Daily, another video podcast, and they were talking about digital land and digital land purchases. So I think he may have surprised a few people when he was on there because he does like crypto. He is a crypto enthusiast.
Like he surprised them by being there, or
no,
them with like a statement.
A statement, and the fact that
okay,
he thinks buying digital land is silly.
Right.
So his,
I mean, I know why. I get why people would say that.
Yeah.
Like they just don't understand kind of what the value is. I mean, anytime somebody says something like this is silly, that's where they're coming from. It's
right.
A lack of understanding about like what the value of that thing is. And he doesn't exactly strike me as the type of person that would, I don't know, have ever like played a game like Second Life where that concept of having digital land's not new.
Well, his exact comment, which I thought was funny, is this is the dumbest shit ever. Now, his reasoning for it is utility. So I think that's an important word to talk about a little bit.
Okay, but that's what I mean when I'm saying. Like,
oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
So he doesn't see the utility of it. So I think in some place like Sandbox or Decentraland, I think the utility is still being built. So it's there. You can buy it. But as people start to go into those places and build shops and lands, that land will have more utility to it. That's my thoughts on it. So in some ways I may agree. And I think it may even depend on where you're buying land at.
Well, yeah. I mean, it totally depends on, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, anything crypto related, these people get kind of pissy about, companies doing ICOs or whatever. And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, you're mad that thing failed, but
right.
You didn't do any actual investigating into
why it failed
well, no, I mean, before, like, what I mean is, let's say I'm a new investor and I'm wanting to get involved in crypto, and, I listened to somebody's podcast or read a blog somewhere by somebody that I just decided I would listen to, and they recommended, which they should never do, but they recommended that I invest in this ICO that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a lot more rampant, 3 years ago. But the point is, if you don't do your research ahead of time before you invest in that thing, you can't be surprised when it fails. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of the reason why it failed is probably pretty evident if you just go and look at anything to do with that company.
Sure.
A lot of ICOs were done based on a thought in a white paper. Like, they just came up with an idea that they thought might work, but they hadn't done any actual work to make the thing.
Well, yeah.
And so if you're talking about in terms of, kind of now where we are, and ICOs still happen, so I'm not going to say they don't. There's a lot of question about, legality and all of that from a fundraising standpoint, but whatever. It's hard to stay on track because it's really easy to diverge down a whole other pathway in this discussion, because there's a lot of talking points about it. But the point I'm getting at is if you're trying to be smart with your money, your time, your, investment in anything, whether that's a money investment or a time investment, or like me wanting to participate on some platform. Mm-hmm. It's prudent to do your research regardless of whether we're talking about blockchain or not. Sure. Honestly, I don't want to go out and buy software that doesn't have a history of, good reviews and support and, that kind of thing. So why would that be any different in this new world? So if I'm going to go find some platform and I want to buy digital land, I need to understand the use. Yeah. What am I going to be doing there?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to buy digital land, then I probably want to know like the vision of where they're headed, how far along in that process are they, on building there. How active is the community? Because your land would be useless if the community isn't there to actually use whatever it is you build on that land, for example.
And that's very true. I mean, utility kind of comes with the usefulness of it comes with the community. If you have no community giving it utility, then it has no value too.
Right.
So
I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to this type of stuff. So like, I get that it's like you may miss something major.
Well, and I think part of it comes on the heels that he may feel that way, and it's probably completely unrelated to it. But, kind of like everything else that's an investment type thing right now, what used to be, $30,000 to buy a piece of land, whether it's in Sandbox or Decentraland, is now, more like $3,000 to purchase it. So it's come down quite a bit. So there may be some of that.
Well, I think a lot of
happening.
The people that are investing too, they're just not thinking about it right.
Sure.
They're just looking at like, how can I make some money right now? And when they didn't see the crypto crash coming or whatever, it's like, I mean, for a lot of reasons, it feels kind of silly to me that they didn't, because right now there isn't a lot of usefulness in a lot of these projects yet. There's no way to use the tokens. There's no liquidity to get out because, transactions and gas prices and stuff are so high and slow. And until like there's some significant changes, that's just kind of the world it is. Well, and the real usefulness comes when we get that shit figured out, which it is. It's getting figured out. Like people are actively working on it. And of course, there's the impending September Ethereum
merge
thing.
And a lot of people think, here lately, a lot of the markets have kind of stabilized. So there's some thought that we may have found the floor when it comes to things like that too.
Right.
So, and kind of like, when we talked to Velvet Capital last week, he was even saying in some ways it's kind of great, because when it was kind of the crypto boom and NFT boom and all this stuff was like going crazy, everybody was writing white papers and everybody was coming up with new projects and stuff like that.
Right. They're just kind of riding waves.
Riding wave. But now, this year when he went to ETHCC, it was nice to have mostly just the serious players in the room instead of
cut out all the
cut out a lot of the extra and the fat and
whatever. Yeah.
It was a lot nicer.
It's funny. It's like, I just look at this stuff and I have about 1,332 thoughts that all happen at the same time.
That's a very specific number for what it's worth.
That's how many tabs I have open in my head.
Oh, geez.
But
the wheel in Chrome is spinning.
Yeah, sometimes. But like when I hear this stuff, I'm just kind of like taken aback, and I'm like, why is this not obvious?
Well,
especially somebody like him. But then I go, oh wait, well, I mean, he just doesn't understand kind of the vision and like where this is headed, and so he doesn't understand he needs to be looking at that, simple criteria of usefulness, like, understand why this thing will be popular or not popular. Like,
well, and I think I think it's harder in kind of a VR world to see the utility of digital land. I'm not saying it doesn't have it. I'm just saying I think it's a lot harder for people to wrap their arms around it, especially if it's not something you've grown up with or been a part of.
I mean, there's always been that. Like, I mean, how old is Second Life? Like, that's
been around.
And that was pretty popular. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this podcast surely knows about it.
Right.
Right? Like, know your demographic, I guess. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I don't know our demographic, but I just feel like, that feels like it's been around for a long time. People were making millions of dollars by having, digital land. It was just in this game.
Right.
So it's not really a new concept from that standpoint. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it feels weird to me that so many people are struggling today to understand the usefulness of owning a digital thing.
Right.
Regardless of whether we're talking about land or we're talking about, I don't know, a piece of art or whatever. Like NFTs, you know, that's such a hard concept for people.
Sure.
They're like, you know, they poo-poo on it all the time because they just don't understand like why.
Right. Right.
And that feels strange to me. It's like, well, okay, but you like to own physical things. How is that different? Why would you
not want to own a virtual thing?
Yeah, how is that different?
Yeah. Well, and I threw the pair of AR glasses up there too to go with this conversation.
Yes, because it does go with this conversation.
It does go with it, and I feel like the utility for virtual land that overlays physical land is a lot easier to grasp.
Yeah.
At least for me it is. The idea that I can put an advertisement there or a game there, or, you know, it's the mixture of the virtual and the real worlds together has a lot more appeal, at least for me.
That digital twin thing.
It's that digital twin. Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Whatever company, whether, you know, it's a company I'm personally involved in because we're working on this, but like, or it's not. Maybe it's somebody else. Maybe it's Niantic or who knows.
Mm-hmm.
But the company that figures out how to actually make a digital twin of the real world, and I mean the whole world.
Right.
The company that figures that out is the next mega tech giant, right? Like
the next Google
or whatever. I think personally the real trick to that is that they won't own it.
No,
I think that's the only feasible way it can move forward. Nobody should own it. It should just you can own parts or pieces or whatever, but like, I don't.
So
think
you're
there's
saying
a company.
Facebook doesn't own the?
Well, I mean, they're not trying to build.
Or Meta doesn't own the map.
Well, I don't think they're trying to build a digital twin of the real world. For one, I mean,
and it could be Google or whoever.
I'm saying, okay, let's go with Niantic because I think they're trying.
Right.
I think they're making a run at it. I think Snap is making a run at it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, those two guys, for example, the digital twin of the real world, that is incredibly useful.
Mm-hmm.
That you can build entire businesses that make, you know, things that are tethered to those real world locations. You can use that map, the digital twin of the real world, to get more precise positioning than you could ever get using freaking GPS. I mean, I open up my phone and the little blue dot of me on the map jumps 50 yards away and then comes back, and like, that is not precise.
Right.
I mean, at most it's like 3 feet inaccurate. Or, I mean, in the least.
Right.
Because it's never really on you.
Yeah, right. It's always...
it's always, like, drifting and floating. And, you know, and you're like... I mean, I've done a fair amount of testing on this stuff over the years. And it's laughable.
Sure.
So, like, if I'm going to make an app that allows me to place, you know... let's go with art, because we were just talking about art.
Put art on a wall, and
I've got a a painting that I did, and I need it positioned like directly on this wall. I don't want it floating off the wall like 3 inches. I want it there, and I want it persistently there. So whether I'm there or you're there or anybody else, whether you're there or you leave or you go and you come back or whatever it is, it's always just there. It's locked. It's in that position. It's 100% on that wall, as if we were doing this in the real world. And I experienced that in AR with my glasses or contacts or whatever, and I can see that thing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've enhanced my physical world with that digital thing, my NFT or whatever, you know, and
so,
I like that scenario, which is why you mentioned the glasses, I guess. But that scenario is like, if you can't understand the usefulness of that, like, get out of here, you know?
Right.
Like,
well, and I think he was speaking more to the virtual stuff, which I agree is harder.
It's harder, but it's not.
But it's not. I mean, as soon as somebody builds a business inside there, and you can go to that business and buy stuff, that land has utility.
I mean,
that's a basic example, but
look at the the movie, right? Ready Player One.
Mm-hmm.
I get that that's dystopian, but people were escaping to a virtual world to go like live somewhere, basically as much as they could possibly be in there. They were in there, right? And they wanted to live in that world because they could be anything they wanted, go anywhere they wanted, do whatever they wanted, right? And so I get that, you know, in that quote dystopian,
mm-hmm.
you know, future, that's where you want to be. But like in the end, that's highly appealing to a lot of people in today's world. And we're not in dystopian times. I mean, we could probably have conversations about whether or not we really are or not, but we're not.
Right.
Not here anyway. So like,
yeah, and I've got more on that a little later too.
Yeah. So you don't have to be living in, you know, Ready Player One's, you know, dystopian world to really want that.
Right.
To want that escape. I mean, that's what games provide. I mean, any game, whether it's virtual reality or not, is that escape. It's something different.
Mm-hmm.
Movies, the same. You know, whether I'm watching them at home or TV shows, like it's an escape, and people do that. So in a virtual, like, why is that such a hard concept? It immediately relates.
Right.
Like they are exactly the same. It's just a different medium, but they all are doing the same thing. It's crazy to me.
It is.
Sorry, Mark Cuban, but you need to like really reevaluate your position on this shit because
come on,
like, it is not a difficult.
If he hears this, maybe he can come on the show and tell us why.
Awesome,
I would love it.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a conversation about it because I think you're wrong.
So
yeah.
Quick update on Apple glasses. How bad do you want the Apple glasses?
I mean, pretty bad.
Like camp out overnight for them? Bad?
For sure, yeah.
How many nights would you be willing to camp?
I don't know. Do I have to know this number?
You might need to start thinking about that one. So why is that? So I'm going to Ming Chi Kao. He works for Mac Rumors.
Okay.
And he's been pretty good at, you know, figuring some of the stuff out. And his belief is that when these things are released, so this is just kind of a little update because we've talked a lot about Apple glasses. So
sure.
But this part's, you know, more about availability. He thinks that the price is going to be $2,000 a pair. So that's a little better than the $3,000 a pair that we heard earlier. So that part's exciting. The bad part is at release, it sounds like there's only going to be 1.5 million of them. And that's a pretty low number.
That is.
So given that they've sold, you know, 12 million or more like iPhones of a specific one on opening day for those, that's a very minimal number. Now it's 2,000 and it's still, I have to say, you know, we sometimes talk with our friends and stuff about all this stuff and, you know, their eyes gloss over a little bit.
Our less techie friends, yes.
So I'm not sure what the demand will be for them. I mean, I know I'm super excited for them, but it's scary to know there's only going to be 1.5 million pairs of those things on opening
Not really.
day.
I mean, if you think about it, first of all, this first iteration of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have hopes, but like I also have expectations that are nowhere near that hope.
Right.
So like, I think, I don't know, that feels like a probably
maybe
reasonable number. Yeah. Just because like people are, I mean, they're hesitant to adopt this stuff. Because this is a big change.
This is a big change. And they'll have to see, kind of like your Mark Cuban, you know, they'll have to start seeing the real value in it.
Well, yeah, they have to actually see that future. I mean, if they listen to this podcast, maybe they would get it. But like,
well, you know, you always hear metaverse this, metaverse that, and it's all tied to virtual world. Like if you ask anybody on the street right now, what's the metaverse? And they're like, I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, maybe
virtual reality?
Metaverse isn't the right word, huh? Like maybe we're killing it anyway because, well, I don't mean we, like I'm not participating in killing it.
Right.
I don't think.
I hope not.
But I'm kind of, yeah. Anyway, the 5 new tabs opened. I don't feel like maybe that term is 100% right for a mixed reality future, right?
Right.
Like, it's possible that because we haven't found the real word for it yet, that it's just going to be a hot minute before people really get on board, because they can't see it. Like, they're seeing what Facebook is putting out there, which is just, they're like, fuck you guys, this is what we're doing. It's VR, and we're going to own it. And it's like, oh, fuck, you got it so wrong. But I mean, it's possible that's the right number of headsets. Just, give people a chance to so people like you and me, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to get our hands on some.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll
take the day off or whatever to go try to stay in the line.
Our concerns about you being able to actually use them. So maybe we'll just have mine. But, so we'll get them. But I imagine that I won't come in contact with another person that has a pair. I think it's highly likely in my normal circle of people that nobody else buys them.
Well, I agree. I mean,
and I would say
1.5 million of them. I mean,
if that's 50 people that I come in contact with on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Based on
U.S. population, that's almost, I'm not gonna do the exact math, but that's what, 1 in 100 people that would have one. Don't we have 300 million people here and 1.5 somewhere in there?
Maybe, yeah. So maybe that's right. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking aloud about it. It's I know that seems like a low number, but how does that compare to the first iPhone when that released? Because that was fucking earth shattering too for people, and really hard for people to kind of get their heads wrapped around that phone and what that device could do, and all the usefulness and utility of it, and why do they want to spend however many hundreds of dollars it was at the time. And
you could probably start paring down to who's going to buy it
that first we're just talking, because it'll probably be the same device and they just do another big production run of it or whatever.
Not to be discriminate, but the stats are true. So you're probably, most people over 50 probably aren't going to buy one.
Right.
Overwhelming, it's probably going to be men. Most likely, I would think. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. And then you probably could carve out younger kids. So out of that 300 million, you could probably cut at least half of those people out that aren't going to buy it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about okay.
And then the expense is going to roll a bunch of people out too.
So let's say I have a regular circle of 50 people that I see in a given week. Let's say week. People I know. And I buy these, and the 49 or 50 people that I know don't buy it, but they see me with it and they ask questions and they want to know about it. And I tell them and how awesome it is. And I give it a glowing review, which is what I expect to do. So we'll see. And then they all go, oh shit, I should go buy that. And then maybe 3 of them go buy it.
Right.
So I was first in, got it of that 1.5 million that they're going to release. Right. And then they ramp up production time, because they're okay, word is going to get out on the street, and we're going to have, for every one person we sold to, now we're going to have 3 more.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll happen fast, and there'll be lines, and it'll create demand, and it'll go like it used to.
Right.
I mean, I don't go to an Apple store anymore and wait for shit. So. Yeah, no, not anything. No. But back in the day I did.
Right.
Because that's how you had to do it, or you didn't have one anytime soon. So you go and you would wait in a line. I mean, it's been a long while since I've had to do that. I could just order it and it would arrive.
I know. It's been a while. Well, it's been a while for someone like us. I know people still wait in lines for the new iPhones and new Android phones, stuff like that. It's just, for me, the changes have been so incremental at this point that it's not worth it. I'll wait a month, but this is different.
Yeah, this is a mega change. This is a huge leap. And I feel like if they're betting on the early adopters, the number's probably right.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the tell your friends type approach. Like, tell your friends how awesome, the glasses are. Oh, my hands like get stuck sometimes in the air.
It's just kind of there.
It's really, I think it's the mic.
The lines are really stressful too. Like you're just kind of hanging out and time passes and
stressful.
Wouldn't they be? Aren't they stressful? Maybe they're not. I was trying to do a horrible transition to the next thing.
Okay.
Well,
what is the next thing?
Well, the next thing is, we all are looking for something that helps us with anxiety and depression and less stress and all that stuff. It seems like there's a lot of it, especially after the pandemic nowadays.
Yeah.
This guy, David Glowacki, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. He's created an application called LSD. And so there's a little bit of ramp up to this. So before he made the application, he was hiking. And while he was hiking, I won't spend too much time on his story, but he was hiking around and he fell and hurt himself really bad. And he started bleeding internally into his lungs. And basically he started essentially drowning on his own blood. So it's pretty horrible.
Yeah.
And
sounds like
he had a near-death experience. So while he was laying there, he describes that he was able to look down at his body and it started to glow and become light. And, you've heard these stories before. And, at some point he stopped being scared and was actually more like curious as to what the next step in death was. And, people call this transcendus or sendus. Oh gosh, I can't say it today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Transcendence. Thank you.
Okay.
So, he started studying that kind of stuff, and he found that if you create the right type of visual stimulus in a VR environment, it actually creates the same effect on your brain as a mild dose or medium dose of LSD.
Okay.
And treating people this way, obviously these must be, and it's like glowy little figures, not like, the walls are dripping, melting and spiders and none of that stuff. That obviously is not very relaxing and anti-anxiety. But no, showing certain types of colors and shapes and things like that allow people to kind of sort of meditate, and it triggers some things in their brains. Maybe it's a visual ASMR type thing instead of a sound one. And I know how much you hate ASMR, so it'd probably drive you up a wall too.
There hasn't, I haven't had a lot of positive reactions to it, like the sound of people eating and stuff. I don't know what's happening with our dog.
No, I apologize. But
but yeah, no, the sound of people eating, particularly for me, or that lip smacking crap. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it makes me want to like get violent. I want to throat punch that person making that noise.
But I think there's, when we're looking for value outside of video gaming with, things like virtual reality and augmented reality and some of this stuff, I think this is great because what they're basically saying is very similar to people who are able to meditate. For some people, they may be able to treat their depression or anxiety or some of those other types of illnesses using virtual reality instead of taking medication. So they're still doing studies, and I'm not saying if you have issues with any of those.
Is that like what some of these pictures are?
Yeah. So
I guess there's just the one.
Just the one over there.
Like a trippy X-ray.
Kind of the trippy X-ray there. They're doing more studies on it, but there may be a future where you can spend a little bit of time in the evening in VR, and it'll really kind of help things out, and maybe you don't need the anxiety medicine. I don't want to get into whether taking medication for that stuff is good and bad, other than most people will tell you if you can skip the medication, that's obviously, a better situation. And obviously, this is not medical advice in any shape or form. Please don't go out and buy a VR headset or anything like that.
Disclaimer here.
Yes. But
we're not doctors, medical experts, blah, blah, blah.
None of those things. But it might be something worth looking into if you do have those and do your research and all that stuff. They're still doing studies too. So they're not like ready to treat people with this yet, but it mimics, the calming effect that people have experienced with like near-death experiences. They're able to, when they study their brains in these situations, they actually go into something very similar to like when you're, sleeping and that kind of thing. It can be very restful and peaceful for some people. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So not having gone through it myself, I don't know what effect it would have on me. I'm kind of neutral on things like ASMR. I don't know if they're even remotely related. I know ASMR drives you up a tree.
Yeah.
But
like I said, violent.
It makes you
violent.
But it's an interesting study and another use for virtual reality.
Yeah.
But
well, keep an eye on that one.
Keep an eye on that
it's
one.
Definitely interesting, but like, yeah, a little weird application for it. But it's cool to see other uses.
Hey, other uses, other things. So,
well, is that it for today?
I think that's it. So,
okay.
Until the next one later this week.
All right. Well, on that note, then, be sure to subscribe.
Leave a comment.
We'll catch you on the next one.